Who was assassinated and why? Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated on June 5, 1968 by a man by the name of Sirhan Sirhan. Sirhan was a Palestinian that held strong anti-Zionist and pro-Palestine beliefs. Sirhan killed Robert Kennedy because Sirhan opposed Kennedy's support for Israel. Who carried out the assassination and how? Robert Kennedy had given a campaign for supporters at the Ambassador's Hotel's Embassy Ballroom. After leaving the podium and exiting a kitchen hallway, he was brutally shot multiple times. 5 other people were wounded. 25 hours later, Kennedy died at Good Samaritan Hospital at the age of 42. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery.
Some immediate consequences of RFK's assassination was that Sirhan was put into jail, though at first he was sentenced with the death sentence, but that didn't happen because California abolished the death sentence in 1972. So instead, he was sentenced to life in prison. The assassination also brought unrest, despair, and mourning among the American people. RFK's assassination also brought intensified debates about gun control and political violence. It also brought attention to Middle Eastern political tensions. Some long-term consequences of Robert Kennedy's assassination include affecting the Democratic Party in the 1968 election. It affected this party and the election by leaving the party without a leader that was appealing to many voters, but it also contributed to the election of Republican Richard Nixon. Some other long-term consequences included gun control legislation. It affected gun control legislation by adding to the assassinations of the 1960s. This increased the public's demand for gun control and led to the Gun Control Act of 1968. It also affected the civil rights movement because RFK was a big civil rights advocate, and his death left a void in leadership for this movement. And lastly, it brought public sentiment and trust because multiple assassinations in the 1960s led to distrust in the American and political processes as in the American public. The public response to RFK's assassination was one of profound shock and grief. This was because Kennedy was a prominent political figure, having served as a U.S. Attorney General and a U.S. Senator, and was campaigning for the Democratic presidential nomination at the time of his death. His assassination on June 5th, 1968 by Sirhan Sirhan was just 2 months after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. This added to the intense national turmoil and mourning during this period. Kennedy's death was seen as a significant loss to the nation, particularly among those who supported his advocacy for civil rights and his opposition to the Vietnam War. Many people were devastated, and the nation was full of mourning and sorrow.
How does the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy relate to Julius Caesar? As we all know, they were both assassinated. However, they were assassinated for different reasons, which we will get to in a minute. One similarity they had, however, was that Robert F. Kennedy was a political leader running for president, which is similar to how Julius Caesar was a political leader already in a high position of authority in Rome. Both of them were assassinated as political leaders in some type of authority. How are the motivations for the assassination similar or different? Sirhan Sirhan stated that he acted out of a desire to avenge perceived betrayals related to the Six-Day War. This is similar to the motive of killing Caesar because of his betrayal toward Pompey. Sirhan Sirhan, however, was not motivated by jealousy or as an act of prevention from RFK becoming too powerful. In Julius Caesar, Brutus acts out of fear that Julius Caesar will become too powerful and too ambitious, and it will eventually lead to the demise of Rome. Cassius and other conspirators act out of jealousy because they are jealous of Caesar's position of authority and how much the public loves him. Sirhan Sirhan was not motivated by jealousy And he also was not motivated as an act of prevention. He was simply just acting because he completely disagreed with Robert F. Kennedy's thoughts and opinions, and he also wanted to avenge the betrayals related to the Six-Day War. How did the assassination change history? As a result of the assassination, Robert F. Kennedy did not have the chance to be president or progress with his political career. Similar to Caesar, we will never know what he would have been like as a leader because he was assassinated before he could truly show the world how he would have led. Both of these people, Robert F. Kennedy and Julius Caesar, were assassinated as they were political leaders in some sort of position of authority. Both of them got killed before we could truly see how they would have led their nations and how they would have acted toward the people.
At the time of Robert Kennedy's assassination, almost everyone saw it as wrong and unjustified. He was a popular presidential candidate who fought for civil and social justice, so his murder was met with shock, sadness, and anger. Even years later, people still see his assassination as a tragic event. Sirhan, his killer, claimed political reasons, but most people never saw those as a valid excuse. While there have been debates about Sirhan's trial and mental state, they have not changed the general view that the assassination was unjust. From a biblical perspective, the Bible teaches that the life is sacred and that justice should be handled by lawful authorities, not individuals. Exodus 20:13 says, "You shall not murder." This shows that life is valuable. Romans 13:1-4 talks about government being responsible for justice and not individuals. Romans 12:19 says, "Vengeance is mine, says the Lord." So revenge is not for people to take. And Proverbs 29:2 basically says that good leadership benefits people, but the Bible does not support assassination as a solution. In short, both at the time and today, Kennedy's assassination is seen as tragic and unjust act. The Bible also supports this view, emphasizing justice, leadership, and the value of life. Here is the final discussion question. How did the assassinations of Julius Caesar and Robert Kennedy show the impact of political violence on society? And what lessons can we learn from these events about leadership and democracy?